Entrepreneur India is with Srinivas Kollipara. He's the COO of T-Hub. Many people know him as the brain behind getting startups in Telangana all under one platform called T-Hub. Hi Srinivas.
Good morning.
Hi. What I want to know from you today, Srinivas, T-Hub has come a long way. From just getting startups together to today being an active partner with the government. And also looking to help other states, as you mentioned earlier. What has T-Hub evolved into, and what is T-Hub really looking to evolve into? Do you see yourself as a dominant player in helping the startup ecosystem? And do you also see that T-Hub could collaborate with other states and make India a powerful, powerhouse in terms of IT as well as startups across the world?
Absolutely. So let me start just by saying a little bit about what T-Hub is, right? So we're a not-for-profit organization whose mandate is to turn Hyderabad into a startup destination and to create startup success stories for the whole of India. The reason I say that is that we are about the entire ecosystem. It's not just about what we do. We partner with many different people. Now, what we started doing was build density within our own city because that's step one in building out a startup ecosystem. We did that for the first 2 years, and I think we've been very, very successful there. The number of startups in the city has gone up tenfold. We have the most number of DST-funded incubators in the country. There are co-working spaces everywhere that are all doing roaring business. And so that first stage, I think we've done really well at the density part. And all of this was the idea of our minister, Mr. K.T. Ramarama, Minister for Industries, IT, MA&UD and others, right? And it fit in as part of his original vision of making Hyderabad a global city. It's important because I think innovation is one piece of an entire puzzle that happens. So we already had building blocks for the ecosystem. And going back to the question of states, the way that you build a startup ecosystem is that you have to figure out what is your state going to be known for, or what is your city going to be the best at. You don't want to become a jack of all trades and compete with other places like Bangalore or even Silicon Valley. In Hyderabad, for example, healthcare was a natural fit. We have a bunch of pharma companies, biotechnology companies, hospitals, and so you get mentors from there, you get investors from there, interest in innovation comes from there. There's a bunch of startups already, and we build these vertical ecosystems around these as well. And we picked a few key areas. So what we've picked is healthcare, agriculture, smart cities, sustainability, etc. Right? And so we picked those. So what we've done now is, first off, that has done very, very well. And that piece is what other states are asking us to help them work with. And so we're officially working with Goa, with Assam, and with Delhi, and unofficially working with other states also, on guiding them how do you build out this early stage ecosystem. Right? For T-Hub itself, we've actually moved on now to the next part of our journey. So if you talk about startup ecosystem building theory, step one is density. Step two is build out those successful companies that will go out and seed the rest of the ecosystem. Right? So that's what we are now doing. We are finding the best startups that exist here. We're attracting the best startups from the rest of India and around the world, and helping them all scale through different programs. Those three basic business units that we run, one is our incubator. So our space is the largest incubator in the country. 70,000 square feet, 140 startups, and it went from being a co-working space where anybody could get in to becoming an incubator where you have to go through a strict process. Only the best get in, and we work with you to help you gain customers and traction and revenue also, right? So that's business unit one. And we're attracting people from around India and international now.
I see. Do you have international players?
We do, and I'll come to that in a minute also. So business unit two is our corporate innovation division. So again, we start out with hackathons and the easy stuff. But what we figured out is that the large corporates are also getting really interested in innovation now. They realize they have to be in touch with startups, both for sourcing solutions as well as energizing their internal workforce through entrepreneurship. We are now curating programs for large corporates that help them source innovation, solve challenges, and do all the entrepreneurship piece. And we've worked with companies like Intel, Samsung, Yes Bank, Qualcomm, and many others United Technologies, of course, is an amazing one. So that's business unit 2. Business unit 3 is the international piece. So as your company scales, and as the India story and Telangana story grows, you find more and more startups wanting to come into India from abroad and access the market. But as we know, that's not easy.
Right.
Because of our unique access to the government, both as a customer and policy,
right.
because of our access to the large corporates, both Indian and international,
right.
And because of our knowledge of the ecosystem, what we can do is help those international startups to come in. Soft landing is the easy part,
right.
but also help them localize their product, figure out what are the right sales channels, and open those doors so they get more customers and revenue.
Right.
And so that's our third business unit. And the final thing I would say is that also what we're doing is we are about to come up with a new building, end of next year, to be the world's largest startup campus. And so over there, what we're trying to do is take leading positions in emerging technologies that will solve problems of the future. And the examples of that are AR and VR, artificial intelligence, smart mobility. So take stakes in those with a leading anchor global player,
right.
and build out an ecosystem with an incubator, with a program, with a lab. And so that will become the third phase of T-Hub.
Sounds fantastic. You spoke about the government collaborating with T-Hub from its inception stage.
Absolutely.
Now, this is a model we've seen governments sort of actively participate with accelerators as well as co-working spaces and also in promotion of startup ecosystem. But this is a unique initiative which is taking place in Telangana, where from the inception stage the government has been involved.
Yes.
I want to know, in your view, how significant is the role of the government in supporting the startup ecosystem from scratch, and does it change the dynamics, in your opinion, to a great extent? We have many states as examples,
yes.
I don't want to name them,
sure.
but how does it really change the ecosystem? The Indian government is talking about pushing entrepreneurship to a great extent today.
Correct.
So, I mean, this could be taken as a cue for the government to implement in other states.
Right. So, I think first of all it's important to note that the idea of doing this, which became T-Hub, actually came from the minister, Mr. K.T. Ramaram. And his vision was always, how do we make Hyderabad a global city? And so innovation is one piece of it. The ingredients of becoming a global city, most of them were already there, right? We had large corporates, we had large IT companies. It's a beautiful city. Infrastructure is decent. Weather is good. It's cheap in terms of land. But there were certain things that were missing. One part of it was innovation. When you're talking about bringing in global companies, they look at a bunch of factors, and innovation is a piece of it, because that tells you how talented is the local workforce, how self-motivated are they, etc. But it goes beyond that. Industries are looking for many other things, including the livability of your city.
Absolutely.
How will the city cope as it grows? And so that's another area I think that we've had visionary leadership. They're thinking about how do you build out the city so that if the city tripled in size, we would still be able to manage that through our public transport. The city is livable. Microbreweries is one form of it, which is makes it cool. Music concerts, culture, all of those are being focused on also. And we work together hand in hand on a bunch of these things. I think the unique thing about it is typically governments want to run anything.
Right.
If they put in money into, let's say, a startup incubator, they say everything runs by us.
Absolutely.
They had this unique model where the government has confidence in us. We are a not-for-profit independent organization. The government has a seat on our board and guides us closely. But we do get to do what works with the ecosystem. And it's a long-term vision. Building out a city is 20 years. It's not, the 5-year cycle that political circles have.
So you mean there is independence in operations,
yes.
yet there is guidance of the government as well as backing of the government?
Guidance of the government, backing of the government. We're very, very clear with our governance.
So that is the secret sauce of the success of T-Hub today.
And it works hand in hand. So for example, a lot of companies go to them and say, we're looking at setting up shop in Hyderabad.
Right.
Large multinationals. The first thing they talk about is T-Hub. Go talk to them. See if there's some innovation work that you can do together, if you can partner. And so it works amazingly well for us.
Right.
But the other way around also happens. Increasingly, we're getting large corporates come to us and talk about innovation when they're not here.
Right.
And we pass them back to the government and say, you know what, that's great, we would love to work with you. And consider doing something here. It's an amazing city. Right. So I think both sides benefit, and it's that hand-in-hand piece that works brilliantly well.
My last question. In the last 3 years, you said you've already moved on from the first stage to now to the second stage. You've already given me 4 business stages that you aim to achieve. Where do you see T-Hub going forward in the next 3 years, 6 years, or long-term span of 10 years?
Sure.
Keeping in mind it's a non-profit organization.
Sure.
Governments change.
Sure.
And so does the requirement of the startup ecosystem.
Correct. And so I'll tackle the last one first because I think I kind of addressed it a little bit and it's easy, right? We do need to evolve as the ecosystem changes and grows. And we've done that by focusing now on growth stage companies and not, building up the density because the density part happened. So we will continue to evolve. We're talking about building out these centers of excellence for emerging technologies. That's again a response to the moving borders of what's going on in the startup ecosystem. So that we will do. We'll continue to morph and change according to what's needed. And also what that does, by the way, going back to the states question, because we're focused on growth stage guys, all of the different things happening in the other states, flow into us, and we help scale everybody for India. So I think that the biggest change that will happen is that we will really start focusing on the best startups in the world coming in and growing out of the programs that we run. We expect that unicorns will come out of stuff that we do. We expect that many industries will transform, lives will transform because of the startups that we work with. And we expect that jobs will be created all over the place because of these startups again, and that we will be a factor in all of those pieces happening.
I see.
And that's across the country and across the world.
I see. Can you name 3-star companies that have actually grown into something from T-Hub, from unicorns?
Sure. One company that we can think of is Banyan Nation already.
Right.
So they work on waste management.
Right.
So they do 2 things. And this has morphed again as startups do. But today what they do, and they're doing brilliantly well at them, one is closed loop recycling. So how do you take bumpers from a car, for example, from an old abandoned car, recycle them into new cars? And they're working with Tata on that piece, right? They do that similarly with plastic bottles. But the other piece is that they've built out an entire IoT-based platform that helps municipalities to manage their entire waste management, from the garbage collection to the dump, to where are these workers moving. All of these pieces are enabled, and they're actually doing pilots in a district of Telangana with our help again. So what we've done is we've actually managed to get the Telangana government to say, if it is a T-Hub startup, we will do POCs with them,
right,
which can scale larger. And as we know, if you can get into one state, other states open their doors, and that's what's happening today.
Right.
So that's an incredible company doing brilliant work. Another one I think is Hug Innovation. So this is a company, again, the founders came back from the Bay Area. Actually, both of these examples, they came back from the Bay Area. And he came back actually to build an emergency device for women after the Nirbhaya incident. Very, very quickly realized that no one's going to wear an emergency bracelet that does nothing else. Turned it into a smart tracker, which again is relatively easy, and many people are doing it. But what he came out with is an entire system where the watch is gesture enabled. So you can do multiple gestures that it recognizes, and they have APIs that can work with different devices to control them and make them do things. So for example, you could fly a drone just by using your hands. So usually when you're flying a drone, you're looking at some control unit, the drone is over there. With this unit, you can actually look at it and guide it whatever you want it to do. Again, doing very, very well and working with multiple devices now. A third one is a company called Gayam Motorworks. So that's a company that the 2 founders, actually, their parents had an auto manufacturing unit. Very smart guys out of IIIT. They worked on the battery management system and turned it electric. And that is doing fairly well also. In fact, they've got Big Basket as a customer. That's one sort of thing, right? The AP government is using it for municipal things. Telangana is working with them on a bunch of other stuff.
Right.
They're actually working on charging stations because charging is an issue, right? But one of the things that we did for them was we actually told them there is a market for bikes. And that came out of Uber. So Uber was working with us on a few other things, and one of the things they mentioned was that there's a need for electric vehicles or bikes that can do that, because in Singapore they were looking at Uber Eats.
I see.
So we connected them there, and today Uber is using their bikes both in Singapore and San Francisco, and is looking at other areas. a police force in I think it's Brazil, somewhere in Latin America, is also using their bikes.
Fantastic.
Again, they're poised for growth. So 3 examples.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.